Hello, American Africans, my family. It is an honor to speak with you all today about American African DOS, Descendants of Slaves, versus ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery. We need to clarify the main differences between these two tribes because there are a lot of differences and there is so much confusion right now. First and foremost, American African DOS is not a co-op of ADOS. I want to repeat that. American African Descendants of Slaves is not a co-op of American Descendants of Slavery. To co-op, by definition, is to take over, to force your way over, force your way through. You're putting your way over another way. So you're replacing, right? You're overtaking your idea from someone else's. So you're also putting this and you're backing this with direct action. That's not what we're doing over here. As American Africans, we're not co-opting anything. We're correcting something. So what does this mean? It means like as American Africans, we are completely different. We're a separate entity, a completely distinct tribe. We're not the same as ADOS on any level at all. In fact, if I want to be petty rather, I can say that ADOS co-opted DAS because Descendants of American Slaves actually went public before ADOS. But I'm not trying to be petty, so I'm being real here with you all. We're all different tribes, and that's fine. DAS is different from ADOS, who's different from American African DOS, who's different from FBA, Foundational Black Americans, which no, FBA did not co-opt ADOS or is not trying to co-op ADOS. I'm not sure where this confusion is coming in with this dialogue of co-opting. We are separate tribes. We literally all stand for different things. There's no co-opting that's occurring. These are four distinct and different tribes. Each have different ideologies. And that's why we're doing this series. And yes, this is going to be a series. We're going to be doing DAS next and then FBA thereafter so that you all understand the exact differences between the four tribes. And this is coming from factual documentation. This is not from our own tribe's perspective. We need you all to figure out where you belong. And that's fine if you connect with whichever tribe you connect to, but you need to understand which tribe actually emanates your own ideologies, values, and beliefs. And yes, all of this information is relevant. And yes, it will be put into a website. You better believe that. But that website launch announcement will be posted on our tribe's Instagram page. So be sure to follow us on the gram. Everything is in the description box below. Okay, so let's get right on into this. As you can see, the first thing on your screen are two Black men that you are very, very familiar with, Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. And if you're not already following us on Twitter, be sure you do, because over there is where we go into depth of the differences between these two Black men. And just a quick reminder, Martin Luther King, he advocated for nonviolence, right? He championed civil rights for Black Americans, and he was an integrationist. Whereas Malcolm X, he advocated by any means necessary. That was his motto, right? He championed a separate pathway for us, for Black Americans, believing that white society would never integrate us into their society. And, he was right. So, ADOS feels differently, and that's fine. That's why we are different. But we, as American Africans, we are more aligned with Malcolm X's teachings, more so than Martin. Probably Martin's obviously his later teachings because he came to his senses. But it's clear that Malcolm X was right all along. And how do we know he was right? This is all factual. This is documented. Because every other group here in the United States of America, every other ethnic group is literally following Malcolm's teachings. Every other group has learned from Malcolm except us. We are the only group who did not listen to his teachings. And I personally find that ironic since Malcolm was teaching to us, not them. He was teaching this to us. So the fact that we didn't grasp what he was teaching us, is very unfortunate. But as American African DOS, as a tribe now, not as individuals, as a tribe, not as Christine or anyone specifically, as a tribe, I like to say that we did learn our lesson, okay? Because we're not integrationists. We're I say that we're self-preservationists. Okay, so what that basically means is that our tribe's survival is dependent on our group's ability to uplift, support and advance ourselves, okay? So, and that's how it works here in the United States of America. Reparations is owed, and the difference between our tribe and ADOS is what we'll do with the resources once we acquire them. Plain and simple. Our goal, American Africans, our goal is for our people to heal, thrive, and succeed on the land of our buried ancestors. And we have ways and methods and steps that we're going to be doing that, and we're incorporating that. Whereas ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, their objective after receiving reparations is to be treated equal to white people. So if that's your thing, do you, that's fine. But that's not what we're doing over here. And we want to make that crystal clear. So going back to this, what you see on your screen, as you can see, there are two separate flags, right? ADOS has the American flag. American African, we have the American African flag. Let's be clear about that. That stands for Black independence. And if you want to know specifically about exactly what the flag stands for with regard to the colors, the 1 star, everything like that, please go to our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, and we have a lot of videos there that goes more in depth into that. But anyway, going back, so what makes us different? So as you can see, nonviolence is a powerful and just weapon, and by any means necessary. That sums it up. But scrolling down, what you see is ADOS is more Democrat. They feel like the Republican Party does not serve their interests, and that's their feeling. That's fine. We're not partisan. We're going to go with whoever is going to give us what we want and what we desire, and that's that. Number 2, so reform old Black institutions. That's what they want to do. We want to do something different. We want to create new institutions specifically for our tribe. So what does that look like? We want our own media bureau. I mean, obviously, we need that for our people, especially because we get scrutinized in the media a lot, and we need to have some authority over that, just like the Jews have over the media. We want our own healthcare and program services. We want our own land. So we want things for ourselves. We want to build ourselves. And reparations enables us to do exactly that on a very large scale. So again, that's the difference. They advocate to vote down ballot. That's their choice. We want to protest vote. Why do we want to protest vote? Because the Democrats have taken us for granted for far too long. So we need to teach them a lesson. This is the only way to do that. And besides, you don't have any power if you don't vote. Only the folks, like if one person voted out of everyone, then that one person has all the power and they're going to be electing the president. That's how this works. So if we want to make sure we have a voice and we want to say no to something or anti something, then that's what we have to do. It doesn't mean that we're Republicans. It doesn't mean that we're Democrats or Libertarians or anything like that. It means we're going to be doing what is best for our own interest. That's what everybody else does. I'm not sure why this is difficult to understand. Let's scroll down. Okay. Reparations. So ADOS movement is a movement, and obviously it's a designation. It's a lot of different things. So they're on their whole ADOS thing. And of course they tie that into the reparations movement, and that's fine. But let's be crystal clear here. As American Africans, we're just focused on reparations. That's it. So we're only reparations movement. We don't, clutter our mind with any other things. We're not focusing on Pan-Africanism right now. We're not focusing on other minorities. We're not focusing on LGBTQIA+. We're not focusing on anything else except for reparations for American African descendants of slaves. We are laser focused. There's no confusion about that. There shouldn't be. Okay. Multiracial Black versus 60% West African DNA. We say multiracial because technically, we live in the system of white dominance. We have videos on this, but there's a lot of different ways to say Black. So with us, we say specifically West African 60%. So there's no confusion. And again, if you go to our Twitter account, we go into specifics on why human genetics is so important, because this is the weapon and the tool that's being used by white domination. If you're not using the tool that they're using, you're not going to win. That's just how that works. If you have questions about that, please post them in the comment section. We can go into that, but we do have a ton of videos to explain why we focus on genetics. We don't use genetics the same way that white domination used genetics. We use it in a completely different way. Okay, so just make that clear. Okay, so there's this, their reparations plan is 16 to 20 trillion. I don't know. I've been hearing less, over 20. I don't really know. Ours is 100 trillion over 100 years. Now that 100 years is actually not any different from any other larger scale program. Now, the 100 trillion, that is, but as far as the length of time, we posted this on Twitter as well. If you research other reparations plans, specifically with American Indians and Jews, these timeframes are very long. In fact, American Indians is over like 160 years. So Jews have been 60 something years. And then you have the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund. That's actually going to be a total of 82 years. So that ends in 2091. So, I mean, you have a lot of different programs that last for a very, very, very long period of time. And for us to not really know this, it's very disappointing. We need a long scale reparations program, and 20 years is not cutting it. But they feel that that's good for them, and that's great for them. That's the difference. All right. Everyone is equally compensated under their plan. Everyone is not equally compensated under ours, because that's not how white domination works. So we live in a system of white supremacy, and the more African you look, the more you are disenfranchised and discriminated against. And we're talking about from slavery, literally, to Jim Crow, to mass incarceration, to everything in between. This is just how this system works. So you're not going to be able to be equal to everyone in a system that doesn't treat you equally. So we use the system so that we can, well, rather we understand the system, and then we use the system to benefit us. That's how this works. You're always, when you're playing this game, I hate to call it a game, but it is, but when you're playing this game, you're always trying to learn how to usurp your opponent. So if you're not using the tools or using the same methods and just basically outmaneuvering your opponent, you're going to lose. So with us specifically, because we've been victimized to a level of just generational psychological trauma, just given just with a lot of issues that come with the racial hierarchy in this country, you cannot give us an equal amount. This person who's 60% and I'm an 80%, I've not generationally been treated the same than that person. Besides that person, if they are obviously more white, they have more white access. That's how that works. So you're going to compensate us based on the way the system treats us. Okay, so I mean, if you don't agree, that's fine, but this is what we're doing over here. It makes logical sense any other way, and you're not dismantling anything. You're just putting a Band-Aid over it. All right, so let's move down. So these are some of the quotes. Yvette Carnell specifically said, we're all going to be brown. So, I mean, she's just into this whole brown thing. That's probably why she's breaking brown. I don't really know, but they're into that, and that's fine. We're into what we know ourselves to be because we know who we are. And this has nothing to do with racial purity. That, again, that conversation is a white domination, a white supremacist ideology. We're saying this is who we are and this is how we present. We're not interested in any type of genetic manipulation or genetic engineering, anything that has to do with changing who we are. Unless, obviously, we choose to do that on our own. There's no forcing here. But we value who we are. We know who we are, and that's what it means to know who you are. So, I've heard her say this, make me white. Okay, that's fine. We say, leave us alone or else. Okay, we're not trying to be like you. We don't want to be on the same scale as you. You treat your people the way you treat your people. We treat our people the way we treat our people. This has a lot to do with just a genetic mindset too. We speak about on Twitter, European mindset versus African mindset. Again, if you're not following us on Twitter, be sure you do. We go into the specifics of why it's not smart, but it's not logical either to say something like that in any context. Make me white. That doesn't make sense. Okay, so it's not about melanin to them. It's not about skin color. It's not about how we look. Okay, that's fine. For us, we know that it's about our physical appearance. It has always been about our physical appearance. And coupled that with clearly, obviously, being descendants of American chattel slavery, we understand and we know that this is all together. This is coupled together. So you can't separate the two. It's not like, because if we were white descendants, or rather I should say European Caucasian descendants of American chattel slavery, then we wouldn't be treated the way we're treated, right? So it's also how we look. This is obvious. This is logical. This is sensible. Okay, so they want to get rid of whiteness. So, I mean, if you can do that, you can try for that. That's fine, but good luck with that. We say genetics are inherited, so you can't get rid of whiteness on any scale, whether you're talking politically, societally, socially, economically. It's This is genetics. This is a genetic warfare. Again, we're dealing with a different group of people. So you kind of have to know your enemy. A lot of what I'm seeing with ADOS, they just don't know the enemy. We know the enemy. As a tribe, we know the enemy. And that's why we have and we put in place what we've put in place to protect us from any type of tactics or weapons or anything that could be used against us. Okay? Last part, like we said in the beginning, they're for integration. We're for separate integration. And by separate integration, it's just basically, we live in the United States of America. That's where we live. So separate meaning our people are doing for ourselves separately, just like every other group is doing. And integrated, obviously, because we're not moving to Africa. We're staying here and we're having land that's set aside for us. And we're not doing anything any other group hasn't already done. We're just doing this for ourselves, finally. Okay? They denounce being African. Good luck in this war. But okay, we embrace being African. But we also know that we are doing what we have to do as African people, as African descendants, with a generational trauma on our lives since we got here. So we could do a separate video about that. But we are African, as in genetically African. Okay, we're not continental Africans because clearly they have a different pathway that they went through with regard to white domination. We have a different pathway. So, but we are all Sub-Saharan African. Okay, Pan-African is dead to them. They say they're not African. Okay, so Pan-Africanism to us is not dead. It's just dormant. It's something that we will definitely look to in the future. We will see how that works because we feel like that is definitely the future. But for right now, that's just not in our wheelhouse right now because that's literally us putting out fires in other people's homes. We need to put out the fire in our own home. We need to take care of our own people. We need to make sure our own are safe and healing and going through the process to heal ourselves. You really can't pursue Pan-Africanism on a large, grand scale level if different individual groups are so broken they don't even know who they are, because that doesn't make sense. Pan-Africanism is supposed to be a global African unification of people who are going to be pursuing strategies and tactics that benefit the African people globally. You can't do that if you don't know who you are. So a lot of our people, specifically American Africans, we need to come back to self and we need to kind of first know who we are first. Okay, so they are an organization with two founders. We're not an organization. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have, leaders, because we're all leaders and that's what we promote and we support. However, we do have leader members. So those are folks who are going to be in the front and, we have middle leadership, we have back leadership. So it's more of a, I would say, democracy, but there are obviously folks who are going to be in the front. So that's about it. I want to keep this short. So that's it. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments section below. We're very open to answering questions, and we can definitely do interviews now because we know exactly what we're going to be going over with regard to all three groups and being able to explain to you as well as the public what all three groups are about, because this is what we were waiting for that to happen. So, and that wraps up today's message. I want to thank each and every one of you. I appreciate your time, and I hope today's message uplifts, inspires, and elevates you. Goodbye, family.